Yeah, this session's on strategic innovation, and it's about thinking smart and testing rapidly, doing the quick math, and acting fast. All right, so today be successful for you if you gain some insight, exposure to a tool, generates more value and improve results. Specifically, what does it take to be innovative? What are the common barriers to innovation success, and some innovation process and tools you can use? And your commitment is, if you don't like it, well, leave the session gracefully and quietly. But if you do like it, share it with some other people, try it. And if you loved it, celebrate it, tell everybody. And if I can ever help you and the team, let me know. So, Innovation Foundation, it's about helping clients receive improved value. And let me right off the top how I define clients. Clients is just anybody that depends on you. So you have clients inside the company, you have clients outside the company. And when you start acting like everybody's a client and start focusing on, well, how do I affect them? Right? How do I help them? How do I improve value for them? How do I make them happier? How do I help them avoid experiences they don't want and gain ones they do? So what does that mean? Well, it means generating superior options for clients. And a key thing, options. And here's why options. People want to make decisions for themselves. When you only offer one option, whether you intend to or not, it comes across as you're trying to convince them. And if you're trying to convince, you're naturally losing a little bit of trust. All right, it's about improving their experiences. And people are motivated primarily, frankly, the experiences they want to avoid. That's been proven by Stanford University. It's a 2.1 factor versus, and then on top of that, after they make a safe choice, avoid experiences they don't want, they also want experience they do want, and they want it different than their other options available. So you want to apply creative problem solving. What's their problem and how do I solve it? And focus primarily on avoiding problems, avoiding experiences, either actual problems they're currently having, or like a doctor, if you can't find any problems, risks that they may have in the future. It's about doing things differently, right? And them knowing that it's different. A mistake that a lot of companies make, well, I tell them what we do and I don't want to put down the competition. You don't have to put down the competition specifically. You just have to say, this is what we do, and it's different than what you can expect from others. And again, appreciate people that depend on you, and they're more likely to want you around. And it's about implementing it successfully. So a client, again, is anybody that does or might depend on you for either problem they're having or risks they may have in the future, and that you can help them achieve what they want. So the requirement to deliver value, what is it? Well, it's typically the experience that you're helping avoid, and then the experience help them gain. And the experience doesn't mean in the now. The experience, it could be now, it could be in the future, it could be a year or 2 or 3 years from now. It's what experience do they expect from this product or service leading up to obtaining it, once they've obtained it, out into the future. So think about it. Reality of value is customers expect good products, right? And they expect good service and they expect good price. So what does that mean to you? To add value, you got to go beyond the expected compared to the other options. And that's the foundation of being world class, being able to communicate and deliver superior value. Otherwise, you're a commodity. And when you're a commodity, you're competing on price. And you really make a lot of profit. You make adequate profit at best. And use math, moving towards choice. The reality is all decisions are a best guess, and value is a best guess of their perception and their opinion of, 1, what do they get, times 2, what priority factor they put on it, minus what do they have to give up. It's the best guess of that. So the value journey. The weird thing is, clients rule you out before they rule you in. So picture like if you got 30 resumes, you don't read every resume. You quickly sort them to figure out the 5 or 6 or 7 that are worth spending some time on. People the same way. I mean, even in relationships, even, meeting, who am I going to date or who are going to be friends? We make assumptions about these are the types of people, these are the characteristics. Everybody's got, what is it I expect that's important? And the criteria is, their criteria is prioritized on the experiences they're going to avoid or gain. And, when the clients have options of comparative value, right, once they've achieved the acceptable options. So superior value is when clients understand, meaning they're engaged in talking about values and important differences to them, and that you uniquely can help solve those important ones. So the goal is to be profitable and have growth, right? And you got to be careful because we all have a personal bias of what we think other people should do. And should in strategy and marketing is one of the most dangerous words. You want to find out what they think, not what you think they should do. And the way I used to measure likely profitability is how far I could stretch the gap on a spectrum. To the left side is the intensity of the desire to avoid something or gain. And sometimes they knew the risks and problems, and sometimes you have to educate them on risks and problems they didn't know about. And then the other side is how intense the uniqueness is versus other options, and that uniqueness being important to them to, again, help avoid or gain something. So let me give you an example. If you owned a mouthwash, you'd want to own Listerine. So how'd they start out? Halitosis. Man, I didn't know what that was, left side, but I know I didn't want it. And the right side, Listerine, we kill halitosis, but you know what? We don't taste so good, but that tells you it's working. Unique. And then when halitosis wore off, then they went gingivitis. Again, didn't know what that was, but I definitely wanted to avoid it. And intensity of uniqueness, it doesn't taste very good, tells you it's working. And the wider that gap, in general, the more money you make. So the 4 key questions you want to ask in the innovation process, there's 4 key ones. Do they need and value it? Can they compare and choose it? And if they do compare, will they choose it? Can we make it? And then can we make it profitably? Those are your 4 key questions. As Einstein said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it enough. We tend to make the complex more complex, but the person in the other shoes, they're not buying on strictly facts, they're buying on opinions that they determine based on the facts they hear and understand. So what are the innovation basics? What's a typical process? This is good, may not be great. First uncover opportunities, then write a concept, and then test that concept. And concepts usually, frankly, 1 or 2 or most 3 paragraphs. Because if you can't keep it that simple, you probably don't have anything that's real valuable. And then you evaluate the concept testing and refine it. You do more concept testing. Then you create actual prototypes. Then you do a market test, a live market test, and then you launch it. And that's typically the process. It includes ideas, then analytical thinking, then creative thinking, more analytical thinking, some ideas, some research, and move forward. This one is, frankly, the most common one used in Fortune 500 companies. It's called stage gate. And the concept of stage gate is they're basically milestones, and in each milestone, you make a decision. Do we pivot? Do we persevere, keep going, or do we shut it down? And so the idea is you go through a logical process that makes sense in terms of launching a new product, but you're constantly doing quick tests and testing the assumptions. And again, in testing the assumptions, as we said, assumptions are, either A, can get them and make them better for a better best guess, or B, you can't get it, C, you don't have time to get it, or D, it doesn't justify getting a better best guess in order to get that data. This is called stage gate. The idea, again, major milestones laid out on time with everybody fitting into those in their particular Gantt charts, and this is called stage gate. And if you want to look at more complex, just a way of look at it and say, are we missing anything? This is a complex view. This is more of an academic view, but it's a good checklist to realize that anything we do may affect some of these in a significant way. So your job is to look at each one and say, is there a potential strong negative impact or positive impact that we need to consider in the idea? And we sift through what's really important, and then we tell a story using what's important to show how the important stuff interacts with each other and integrates with the idea. I wish in life someone had shared this earlier in my life. Don't wait for the perfect pitch. Why? Well, by the time it comes, you likely won't swing. So again, understand all business is a best guess. So therefore, make your best guess with your best educated approach, which is a combination of the facts that you have, the important ones, and the assumptions that you're making, and you're putting those together as a story on the major things that can affect it positively or negatively. They could be constituencies, they could be suppliers, they could be supply chain, they could be all different things. And then you adjust it. Think about it. Let's say, I'll use an example from the home improvement industry, right? Often in the home improvement industry, if I get 100 appointments, I'm going to get 30, 35 yeses, all right? So what does that mean? Well, I'm getting 30 yeses, it means I'm getting 70 no's, all right? So what would be the value of if I could change just 5 no's into a yes? That just means going from no 70 times to 65 times. Well, 5 divided by 70, it's a pretty high number. That's a 13-14% increase in sales, and since it's incremental, it's about a 25% increase in profit from just that little adjustment. And so in that way, it's like baseball. If I'm hitting 280, I'll make an outfielder, good outfielder, I'm making millions. If I'm hitting 225 as an outfielder, I'm not playing this year. Okay, millions versus not playing. That's only one hit at 20 at-bats. That's only one hit a week. So the difference in great versus good is usually comes down to small things, high focus, discipline, doing what you don't want to do and doing it anyway. So let me show you a square wheels exercise that you can do with your team. All right, quick little exercise, and look at the picture. All right, here's a wagon. There's people pushing it. It's taking us somewhere. There's activity. We're getting something done. And there's doers. They're following instructions and just pushing, but they have little insight to where we're going. Isn't that the way a lot of companies seem to operate? So think about it. Doesn't that sound familiar? The answers are sometimes right in front of our nose, right? Most processes work. They're getting it done, but it doesn't mean they're doing it efficiently and effectively. Most processes work, but are they effective and efficient too? We're so busy getting things done, pushing and pulling, sometimes we miss opportunities to improve. If we're not measuring it, We're not likely improving it. And the wagon pullers, leaders here, get isolated. They try to make sure people are pulling the same direction. The wagon pushers, well, they need motivation, but often they're not hearing the communication of the vision, the purpose. They're just pushing for an hourly pay. Oh my gosh, the round wheels, the solution are already in the wagon. If we shared what the issues are we're trying to solve widely, and the desired experiences we're trying to achieve widely, and more heads are thinking about it, we're more likely to end up with better best guess decisions. It also shows we need more pushers and pullers. So we got to make sure we get the right resources. We got to recognize and focus talent and assign, those who get things done. Frankly, don't just stand there, do something. And don't just do something. Step back, take a look, be objective, be creative, and see how can we make this better? Because the reality is every process we do is wrong. I mean, I know it sounds insulting to say that, but every process we do is wrong because there's a better way of doing everything. We just haven't found it yet. So think about it. We've got all these things going on, right? We got to pull it together. Intrapreneurship and entrepreneurship. What is it? Well, frankly, it's not a thing, and it's not necessarily even a characteristic. It's an attitude. Anybody can be, and all an entrepreneur is creative inside a bigger company versus entrepreneurship is taking ownership and taking the risks. So what else is it? Being fast is being disruptive, but the key to great entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship is outward focus, not starting with what can we do. It starts with what problem or risk is out there, and constantly searching for who's at risk of having a bad day and what could we do about it, and how you use scientific principles, which I'll get to, and why. You're going to get superior results with less risk. So what's the recipe? Well, the ideas are everywhere. There's intuition, which sometimes is, some cases, the most important one. And there's educated best guesses, and you put it together, but it's always, almost always under uncertainty. So leadership requirement is to accept uncertainty and swing the darn bat. And to do that well, we've got to have validated learning. That helps us make better, best guesses. And that's done through decisions through constant quick math and rapid experiments. I'll show you an example in a second. And so we want to build after we had a concept. We want to measure it. We want to learn. Measure the customer's response. Discipline to focus at the end of what's going to happen, and then work your way back in the value chain. Start at the end. Start with, if it's a kid playing in a playroom, start thinking from in the playroom and work your way back. And you got choices, right? We're going to be disciplined about it. We're going to, you know what? It's not going to work. End it, move on to something else, pivot, make a change, or 3, continue. And we also need the accounting to do a little bit more innovation accounting. It's different. Innovation is measured in a totally different way. Focus more on the speed and progress and productivity and less on the expense. So what actually works? Well, what Wall Street understands to get superior results is, one is having the past viewpoint used to be innovation is a black box, is a formula, and only very creative people can do it. Now the viewpoint is innovation requires management that accepts chaos and uncertainty. Understanding everything is a best guess and therefore everything is risk. So swing the bat. Is a team requirement that people work more cross-functionally rather than in their functions in silos, and they feel comfortable. They trust that they can challenge each other. Be devil's advocate, and they collaborate versus cooperate. Cooperate is getting along. Collaborate is we win together and we lose together. If you don't do well, I don't do as well either. With a simple goal. Is this the right thing to offer that a customer will pay for, and do it as quickly as possible? The challenge is accepting that all innovation is based on very good, educated guesstimates. So the leader's attitude has to shift from I'm Caesar and I'm turning thumbs down or turning thumbs up to a culture of teams and systems that constantly experiment. And the requirement is don't overplan. So innovation is all about learning, right? What's typical? Well, typical is have an excuse for failure. If the idea didn't work, senior management often says, well, it wasn't executed right. It wasn't the idea. Well, that's not right. And there's a bias for delay because the longer you delay, the less likely you are having an experience that you want to avoid. And remember, we put more weight on avoidance than gain. So there's a bias we have of delay. Don't swing, just make sure you swing the bat. So try to put in a rapid innovation process. The essence is validated learning, quick testings in a soil of uncertainty. Take the customer viewpoint, and they're poor at telling you what they want. Essential is to find the truth in how they act and what they don't do. Important. It's not so much what they say. It's testing their actions and non-actions. With the customer learning, instead of asking why, ask why not. And for value creation, it's about the experience of the customer, someone who depends on you, internal or external. And a common problem is we think what customers want or should want versus we learn and validate. So you're going to be quick to pivot. If validated learning demonstrates you're off track, you got to pivot or stop the project. And beware of vanity metrics. Those are success theater. You see it all the time in Washington now. I mean, they pick a number and make a big deal out of it when in general, when you relate it to other numbers, it may not be so great. And change the question from can we build it to should we build it? Is it a sustainable business? So you got to be a ferocious customer-centric. Focus on what they need and how can I help them avoid an experience they don't want and when they do want with rapid testing iterations to the decision process. So it requires that culture of experimentation, right? That failure is okay. In learning, if you can't fail, you can't learn. So focus your observations less on what we're doing and more on why do it. Think big, but start small. You're not going to go success overnight. So 4 key questions again. Will the customer recognize the problem? Is the solution effective? Will they buy it? And can we do it profitably? Success is not building a feature. Success is solving a customer's problem. And remember, environments are not stable. It's constantly moving. Only 5% of success is in the original idea. 95% of it's in the nitty-gritty fine-tuning of the idea. And innovation requires a leap of faith because it is best guess. So what are the steps? We make your primary assumptions, right? And then we need to test them. We test the concept as a story to show holistically the important things, the important constituencies, how this affects various different parts of the organization and outside our organization. It connects the dots and it makes sense when you tell it as a story. Take lessons from analogies. Analogies are sometimes some of the best ways to come up with great innovative ideas. I'll give you a small example. Staples. How did it start? Well, it was a young CEO of the 3rd largest supermarket in New England called Purity Supreme, and he wanted to be an entrepreneur. And he said, well, what have we learned as supermarkets? And what was it like before supermarkets? Well, before supermarkets, lots of little shops, very labor intensive, not a lot of data, tended to be expensive, didn't lend itself to customers making a range of choices at a range of great value. And so that industry consolidated, added technology, added variety, added customer self-serve, brought down costs. And he said, what other industries could I do that in? At the time, he looked at office supplies. They tended to be little mom and pop shops. You didn't know much of what was available. The shops were small and stuffed. And he just took what he did at Purity Supreme, what the supermarket industry did to small stores, and applied it to office supplies. And the next one, very similar. Another company that did the same thing was they looked at, again, what industry is highly fragmented, doesn't have a lot of availability is limited to what's there. They tend to be small mom and pop shops, a high risk purchase, whatever. And that's how CarMax started. Trying to operate as an analogy like a supermarket, or in their case, like their prior company, which was Circuit City. And then the family got their money out before Circuit City collapsed and said, how did we start Circuit City? In stereos, lots of little mom shops, not a lot of availability. You hope you got a good nerd to put it together. It was a high-risk purchase. They just did the same thing with cars. So test your concept as a story, and analogies can help you get there. And then go see for yourself. The approach is you don't need the product or service to have all the bells and whistles, just the core needs, right? Then rapidly prototype it. And each trial is learning. It's not failure. Then combine your personal observation with quick math validation to see if the story makes sense mathematically. Will they buy it? And will they buy it at a rate that we can make money and test it? Step 6 is maintain perspective. The customer doesn't care about your effort. Perseverance is required. Sticking to it. Lots of reality adjustments are going to be along that journey. So stay focused. Systematic discovery process of all major assumptions. So here would be an example. Picture a residential roofing contractor who's thinking about, I wonder if I should add windows. All right, so they start off. What do I know and what are my assumptions? Well, they know they've got 2,000 prior customers. And they say, best guess, about 93% were pretty happy with us. That's an assumption. Then they say, okay, we're going to best guess 75% still own a home. Now we can go out and test that, make sure that's right. That's our assumption. And then we said, now if we advertise with a budget, we can make 50% of those people aware, because we can call them, we can direct mail them, they already know our logo, they know who we are. And then 15% of them, in his assumption, may need windows, so they might want an appointment. And since they know us and trust us already, we'll close 35% of them. So that means our assumption is we can sell 37 of them. And that's an advertising cost per sale of $270. All right, next set of assumptions. Well, the marketing communication, they budgeted $10,000 was their assumption. Displays, equipment, $10,000, and training, $5,000. Again, notice all these assumptions, we're getting them down to do the quick math, but we can test all those assumptions and see if it significantly affects our decision. Then we make assumptions about profitability. Average sell price, we guess at $1,200. Average cost, $400. Average install cost, another $400. Sales commission, 10%, which is $120. Total direct costs, it's $920. So the gross profit per window is the $1,200 minus the $920 is $280. And the average number of windows per home is 12. So the gross profit per home is $3,360. Okay, well then let's try it. What's the total gross profit? Well, the total gross profit of $3,360 times 37 homes is $124. Then we minus the investment assumptions that we had, and it's incremental profit. So decisions go at this point. But now we test the assumptions. And some of the assumptions to get a better number, Sensitivity analysis may say, you know what, it doesn't matter against the go decision of 100,000 if we're off a little bit here and off a little bit there. So we play with it. It's best guess. And then we have rapid decision milestones. Based on our latest learning, do we stop, do we pivot, or persevere? Let me give you some examples. One's called a zoom-in pivot, right? That's when a single feature becomes a whole product. So as an example of this product, they invented this product that was great at itches and irritations, whatever, and they said, man, there's a huge field of people doing that out there. So they focused on one thing, hemorrhoids. Doesn't mean it didn't do all those other things, but they focused, zoom in. And the advantage of that business, they could start small, because if you get a little teeny ad that's just titled hemorrhoids, if you don't have hemorrhoids, you're never going to see the ad. But if you do, everyone's going to see the ad. Another type of pivot is called a zoom out. So an example of that, and by the way, this happened to be one of my failures in life, I was involved in the initial group. The initial group was, I was up watching fishermen in Maine way before GPS, and they were fishing at night, and so the planes were flying over to look for evidence of a school of fish in the water, and then they needed to try to guide the boats in to get them. So he said, and we invented something called glow sticks. We thought it was just for fishing. Now, years later, oh my God, it's a giant industry, and we didn't benefit from it at all, because every fair, every music festival, everything was in glow sticks, and Halloween. All right, it's called a zoom out. Segment. Serve a different customer. Give you an example. In the early 1930s, what is now the #1 men's cologne in the world started out a woman's perfume in Clifton, New Jersey. Needs and different problems solved. Example, WD-40 is constantly running public relations on the various uses of WD-40. Have a platform. An example, you used to go to the gas station for $10, you got the oil changed. Now, Jiffy Lube, they check 30 or 40 different things, and we pay $75. It's a platform pivot. And an axis pivot. Where do you get it? Well, Dell was the first one to say, we're going to just ship it from our factory, customized to the way you ordered it, instead of at a store. Those are examples of pivots. So tips to consider in the creative process. Optimists create value. Pessimists just create fear. So share your ideas as a story. Make sure it has a holistic fit and not like a yo-yo measure or a stopwatch measuring one thing. Create criteria first and assumptions so you avoid rationalizing later. Exchange the word problem to situation, because situation you'll see more options, whereas problem you're zooming right in on solving it. Use what's called circular thinking, always evaluating, modifying, evaluate, modified, evaluate, modify, over and over again. Have a plan B, obviously, but have a plan B. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. Be able to describe so that someone, not through facts through the years, through what people can visualize and picture the experience that they're going to avoid or gain. Describe what that looks like and what it doesn't look like as well. Always compare to the other options, not just what it does, but make it clear it's different than you'd expect. Why? Because if they trust someone else as well, they often assume, well, they probably do that too. You got to point out it's a difference. And you got to be resilient. You got to be patient. Innovation is an inefficient process. It's not straightforward. So, core beliefs, everything's a best guess anyway. They'll be like a child with no fear. You know, imagine potential differences, things people wouldn't expect. From a timing standpoint, swing the bat. Don't wait for perfect pitches. They're unicorns. Analysis. A lot of numbers are plenty good. Just back of the envelope. Give you an example. Think of if you happen to have gone to college or you have a kid going to college. Isn't it true that that was a major, major decision? But my guess is the math to justify it was pretty much back of the envelope. Create the quantity of ideas so that you can uncover valuable differences. And be determined. There's always a way to be different. There is always a way to be different. Sometimes you got to be pretty creative. And it's okay to copy and improve. Some of the most effective businesses I've ever worked in, started, turned around, whatever, we copied somebody else and then improved on it. So put your ego aside and find the gold. The gold is accurate, but really important and unexpected, and it's an important difference. It's a superior value option. Give change a chance. We are wired to avoid change because every time you change anything, there's risk. Accept that risk, expect chaos, swing the bat. Copy success and build on it. Don't quit too soon. And the most important of all of it, because it draws everyone together, be purpose-driven. When you're helping somebody else, you're more likely to have better, innovative ideas. Remember Martin Luther King. Have I got a dream? Not, have I got a great strategic plan? Some lessons I learned personally in innovation. One, shoe leather. All right, I spent at age 25 2 weeks walking through supermarkets and drugstores and big box, looking at the oral care space, looking at toothbrushes. I didn't know what I was looking for. I'm just watching. And finally, I noticed that when they were loading toothbrushes, they were loading them one at a time. And 2, they were having trouble putting them in the right order. And 3, sometimes they're on a bottom shelf, sometimes a middle shelf, sometimes top shelf. So I changed a new rack system and changed our packaging so they came out 3 at a time and went right in the slots. I ended up getting an award for the best marketing concept by the National Wholesale Drug Association that way. Shoe leather. Boring. Didn't even know what I was looking for. But keep looking. Who's got a potential problem or annoyance I can do something about? Fears and egos are important. So example, at GAF, safety was a real big issue back in the late 90s. We had some deaths in the industry, whatever. And it was very difficult to get people to go to safety meetings or take them seriously, and especially the Latino culture that, worrying about safety is something you don't do. So we created a safety video that we did in conjunction with the Indy Racing League. And we showed all sorts of neat stuff you wouldn't know about Indy racing, so it was fun to watch, right? But we showed how the things that Indy racing does for safety are very similar to the kind of things we got to worry about in roofing. And we produced those videos so that the workers would take them home and show the family. And the family's going, man, I now would know what Dad's doing for a living. A, B, boy, the company sent this home. They must really care about their safety. And 3 is, by watching the video, they're learning about safety. Be creative. You got to be acceptable and then expected. That's how we invented root toothbrush. What do they expect? Clean teeth and healthy gums. What didn't they expect? Those cavities were in the back teeth. Be optimistic. Things change. I can remember at Johnson & Johnson, there was a major change in how hospitals got reimbursed in early 82, 83. So in 85, I went to the company and said, what if we took a bunch of those products that people were getting kicked out of the hospitals quicker and faster and set up a home health division that teaches drugstores how to deal with these customers they've never seen before? Because most of the discharges were, frankly, wound care. Copy and improve. An example, I saw people selling jewelry and coins in New York City, a long line of jewelry stores. I go, oh my gosh, they're making a fortune on that. What can we do differently? I said, well, they got one store, because there wasn't big chain jewelry stores back then. If I went into a market and did 6 locations around the city, I could advertise for all 6 locations, be much more efficient, do it at hotels. And first it was selling jewelry, and then it was buying jewelry. Focus on what they believe, not your logic. One of the mistakes I'm still embarrassed about that I made at Johnson & Johnson cost the company $5 million. And here's what happened. I was running dental floss, $80 million, very profitable business. I knew statistically that only 4% of people flossed every day. I also knew that 84% claimed they did floss every day. And we found we had this little product that we did 3-4 million in called stimulants. And we found this research by accident that our stimulants, one, were much easier to use than dental floss, and two, they're even more effective than dental floss. I'm going, oh my God, it's easy to use, more effective. This will be a $100 million business. No, dentists didn't believe it. Hygienists didn't believe it. Didn't matter that we had studies on it. It's what they're willing to believe, not what they should believe or your logic. So here's a little background on my experience. Again, you said at the beginning, today would be successful if you gain some insight, exposure to some tools to generate more value and improve results. Specifically, what it takes to be innovative, common barriers to innovation success, and innovation process and tools to succeed. Now, if you didn't like it, you're probably not getting to this slide, but if you did, please share with some other people, try it, and if you love it, celebrate, tell somebody about it, try it. And if I can ever help you or the team, give me a call. Thanks.